It was a golden October evening in 2023, the kind where the air carries a crisp promise of secrets waiting to be unearthed. The leaves outside Bella Vita, a tucked away Italian restaurant on Maple Avenue in our quiet California town, glowed amber under the streetlights, casting a warm veil over the world. My daughter, Lily, 23, and radiant as the dawn, sat across from me at our usual corner table, our monthly ritual since my divorce from James 3 years prior. The room buzzed with soft laughter, the clink of wine glasses, and the murmur of couples sharing stories over candlelight, a fragile illusion of peace in a life that had often been anything but. Lily twirled her linguine with the careless grace of youth, her dark hair shimmering like polished obsidian, her green eyes, my eyes, sparkling with dreams yet to be tested by time. She spoke of her new job at a tech startup in San Francisco, her tiny but vibrant city apartment, and Ethan, her boyfriend of a year. "Mom, I really think he's the one," she said, her smile bright enough to banish shadows, her voice alive with the kind of hope only the young possess. At 57, I cherished these moments like rare jewels. The divorce had been a battlefield, custody wars that tore at my heart, asset splits that felt like carving up a life, James's relentless attempts to diminish me over our 20-year marriage. Yet here was Lily, proof that I had built something unbreakable, a daughter who shone brighter than any star. She was my masterpiece, a mosaic of James's relentless ambition and my quiet intuition, his drive for success and my empathy for others. These dinners were my refuge, a reminder that despite the scars of a marriage that had tried to erase me, I had raised a daughter who carried the best of us both. But as the evening unfolded, the air thickened with an unspoken tension, and Lily's expression shifted, earnest, hesitant, like a child confessing a hidden truth she wasn't sure how to share. "Mom," she said, setting down her fork, her gaze fixed on me with a weight I hadn't seen since she was a girl, admitting to a broken vase. "I need to tell you something." My pulse quickened, my mind racing with possibilities. A promotion, an engagement, a move abroad. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice steady, masking the flicker of unease in my chest. "I've been spending time at Dad's lately," she said, her words careful, as if stepping through a minefield. "With Dad and Sophia." Sophia. The name landed like a blade, sharp and cold, slicing through the warmth of the evening. Sophia Bennett, the 30-year-old Pilates instructor James had married 7 months after our divorce papers were signed, as if our 2 decades together had been a footnote he could erase. She was the woman who'd slithered into our lives, cloaked in whispers and pitying glances from friends who thought silence spared my feelings. I kept my smile steady, though a cold coil tightened in my chest, a serpent of instinct stirring. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, my tone as warm as the candlelight. "I'm sure your dad loves having you there." "He does," Lily said, her voice softening, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. "And Sophia, she's incredible, Mom. She's kind, thoughtful, makes Dad so happy. She's gone out of her way to make me feel like family, like I belong there." I nodded, sipping my Pinot Grigio, waiting for the blow I sensed coming. Lily took a deep breath, her gaze locking onto mine with a sincerity that cut deeper than any knife. "You're an amazing mom, but Sophia's perfect." The word struck like a match in a dry forest, igniting something primal within me. Perfect. The restaurant's hum faded, jazz, laughter, clinking silverware, all swallowed by a silence that enveloped me, a bubble where that single word echoed like a taunt, a challenge. Perfect. Sophia, With her curated Instagram life, her too young beauty, her calculated charm, had convinced my daughter she was flawless, a goddess among mortals. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I smiled, took a sip of water, and let the moment pass like a cloud across the moon. "I'm glad your dad's happy," I said, my voice smooth as silk, hiding the steel beneath. Inside, a fire kindled, a spark of resolve that would grow into an inferno. When someone hands you a loaded gun, you don't fire blindly. You aim for the heart, and you wait for the perfect shot. "Don't be upset, Mom," Lily said, her voice tinged with worry, mistaking my calm for hurt. "I just mean Sophia's good for Dad. She's so put together, so inspiring. Maybe you could get to know her. For holidays, family events, you know." "I'm not upset, sweetheart," I replied, my tone warm, maternal, unshaken. "I want what's best for you and your father." But in my mind, I was already building a dossier, a mental ledger of every detail I knew about Sophia Bennett. 30 years old, blonde, Pilates instructor with a penchant for posting inspirational quotes while living a life she couldn't afford. An Audi Q5 she leased at a crippling rate. A loft in the city's trendiest district, far beyond her means. A wardrobe of Lululemon and Prada sunglasses that screamed wealth she didn't possess. Sophia, who'd woven herself into James's life with the precision of a predator stalking wounded prey. Sophia, who'd convinced my daughter she was worthy of worship. As Lily returned to her linguine, chatting about Ethan and a weekend concert they'd attend, I listened with half an ear, nodding at the right moments, asking the right questions. The other half of my mind was plotting, a chessboard forming in the shadows. Perfection was a fragile illusion, a glass tower begging for a stone to shatter it. And I was no stranger to breaking things apart. Driving home to the craftsman-style house I'd kept in the divorce, the house where I'd raised Lily, where James's absence lingered like a ghost in every corner, I felt purpose crystallize like frost on a window pane. Revenge wasn't about rage or reckless strikes. It was about patience, precision, and knowing your enemy better than they knew themselves. It was about turning their own weapons against them, letting their flaws become their downfall. I'd spent 20 years married to James, a corporate lawyer who thrived on power, perception, and the thrill of outsmarting his rivals. I knew his mind, his need for control, his fear of public humiliation, his obsession with honesty as the cornerstone of his identity. I knew his vulnerabilities as well as I knew my own, perhaps better. More importantly, I knew Sophia was untested, a 30-year-old who'd never faced real consequences, who believed her charm and beauty were armor no one could pierce. She thought she was perfect. Lily thought she was perfect. James thought she was perfect. But perfection, as I was about to prove, was just a mask waiting to be ripped away, revealing the rot beneath. Before we dive deeper into this labyrinth, let me pause to speak to you, my listener. If you've ever been replaced, diminished, or compared to someone's shiny new ideal, you're not alone. If you've ever felt the sting of being called less than while another is crowned flawless, know that your quiet strength is a weapon they'll never see coming. Hit that like button if you feel the fire of my resolve burning in your own heart. And share this story with someone who needs to know that being underestimated is your greatest advantage. Now, let's unravel the mystery of Sophia Bennett, the woman who dared to call herself perfect. Sophia Bennett was a masterpiece of deception, a carefully crafted illusion designed to dazzle and disarm. Her Instagram was a curated dreamscape, sunlit Pilates poses on pristine beaches, artisanal lattes in minimalist cafes, inspirational quotes about living your truth, overlaid on photos of her in $200 athleisure wear. 48,000 followers, most of them purchased from overseas bot farms, worshipped her illusion, leaving heart emojis and comments like, "Your goals." Her LinkedIn boasted she was a wellness visionary, though her credentials came from a dubious online course costing more in credit card debt than expertise. Her Pilates studio, Bennett Bodyworks, was less a business than a front for private sessions with affluent clients, housewives and executives willing to pay premium rates for her attention. But her private Facebook, carelessly unsecured, revealed the cracks in her facade. Born in a forgotten Nevada town, daughter of a truck driver and a diner waitress, Sophia had been the golden girl, prom queen, cheer captain, the kind of beauty who'd been told she was special. So often she believed it was her birthright. She drifted through beauty school, dropping out after a semester, worked as a bottle girl in a Vegas nightclub, serving overpriced vodka to men with wandering hands, and tried her luck as a model before realizing her looks alone wouldn't carry her to fame. Then she discovered Pilates, a respectable way to monetize her charm and appearance, a path to reinvention that promised access to wealthier circles. There was nothing wrong with ambition, with clawing your way up from a dusty small town to a glittering city life. I admired reinvention, in a way. I'd done it myself, after all, rebuilding my life after James left. But Sophia's ascent was built on lies and borrowed money, a house of cards waiting for a gust of truth to topple it. Her Audi Q5 was leased at a ruinous rate, eating up half her income. Her loft in San Francisco's trendiest district cost more than most people's mortgages. Her wardrobe, Lululemon leggings, Prada sunglasses, Chanel handbags, screamed wealth she didn't have. The math didn't add up, and I intended to find out why. The answer lay in her pattern, one I uncovered through whispers in online forums and private messages from women who'd crossed her path. Sophia had a history of targeting older, wealthy men vulnerable from divorces, career setbacks, or midlife crises. She offered them flattery, adoration, the illusion of youth and vitality, and in return, they bankrolled her lifestyle. James fit the mold like a puzzle piece. 56, freshly divorced, a successful attorney desperate to feel relevant again, to prove he wasn't fading into irrelevance. Sophia had pounced at his weakest moment, offering the kind of uncomplicated devotion that made him feel invincible. But there was a darker edge to her game, one that turned my curiosity into resolve. Through a private online divorce support group, I found stories of Sophia's cruelty, tales that made my blood run cold. She didn't just pursue married men, she tormented their wives, reveling in their pain. One woman described Sophia wearing her stolen jewelry to a charity gala, smirking as she passed, knowing the wife would recognize the diamond necklace her husband had gifted years ago. Another recounted cruel texts from Sophia, mocking her fading beauty and outdated style. A third shared screenshots of Sophia's comments at a social event, loud enough for others to hear. Some women just can't let go of the past, can they? Sophia thrived on dominance, on making other women feel small, inferior, irrelevant. And she was doing it to me, though not directly, not yet. Her attacks were subtler, more insidious, waged through Lily. I'd overheard snippets from Lily's phone calls, Sophia's voice dripping with honeyed poison. "Your mom's so sweet, Lily, but a bit stuck in the past, don't you think? She could use a makeover, maybe some new hobbies." Or, "I worry she leans on you too much. You're young. You should be living your own life, not carrying her emotional baggage." These weren't kindnesses. They were calculated strikes, designed to erode my bond with my daughter, to position Sophia as the wise, caring stepmother, while painting me as a relic, a burden. Sophia saw me as weak, a discarded ex-wife licking her wounds in silence, a woman who'd faded into the background of her own life. She didn't know I was a Stanford-educated lawyer who'd paused my career to support James's ambitions and raise Lily. She didn't know I'd helped build the financial empire she now exploited, the wealth that funded her Audi and her designer wardrobe. And she certainly didn't know I'd learned from James, a master manipulator in his own right, how to dismantle an opponent with surgical precision, how to smile while orchestrating their downfall. Investigation is an art, and I was its master, trained by years of legal battles and a marriage that taught me to read people like open books. I began with a call to Rachel Kim, an old friend from Stanford Law turned private investigator, her knack for unearthing secrets unmatched. We met over coffee in a discreet diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where conversations vanish into the hum of espresso machines. "I need a background check," I told her, my voice low. "Nothing illegal, just public records, social media, financials. It's personal, my ex's new wife. I'm concerned about her influence on Lily." Rachel raised an eyebrow but nodded, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of a challenge. 2 weeks later, Rachel delivered a dossier that was a gold mine, a map to Sophia's vulnerabilities. Her finances were a house of cards teetering on collapse, $75,000 in credit card debt across 6 accounts, 2 defaulted car loans, and 4 months behind on her loft's rent. Her Pilates business, Bennett Body Works, barely cleared $10,000 a year, most of it from private sessions with wealthy clients who paid for her charm as much as her instruction. A settled lawsuit from a former business partner accused her of siphoning $20,000 from a joint yoga studio venture in Nevada, a case hushed up with a payout she couldn't afford. A $10,000 tax lien from the state of Nevada lingered, forgotten but active, now ballooned to $18,000 with interest and penalties. And most damningly, her LLC, Bennett Body Works, operated illegally in California, unregistered, untaxed, a ticking time bomb of regulatory violations. "She's a fraud living on borrowed time," Rachel said, sliding the report across the table, her voice laced with professional admiration for the audacity of Sophia's deception. "This lifestyle only makes sense if someone's bankrolling her, likely your ex." I thanked Rachel, paid her fee, and felt the weight of the dossier in my hands like a loaded weapon. This was the foundation of my plan, but I needed more than paper trails. I needed to get inside Sophia's world, to understand her routines, her weaknesses, her blind spots. Approaching her directly as Elizabeth Harper, the ex-wife, was too risky. She'd smell a trap and guard her secrets. Instead, I decided to infiltrate her life from the shadows, to become someone she'd never suspect. I created Clare Morgan, a recently divorced tech executive seeking wellness coaching to rebuild her life. Claire's social media was a meticulously crafted fiction, stock photos of a polished brunette in her 40s, a LinkedIn profile touting a non-existent career at a Silicon Valley startup, a backstory of heartbreak and ambition that made her the perfect mark for Sophia's predatory instincts. I emailed Bennett Body Works, requesting private Pilates sessions, my tone eager but vague, hinting at a generous budget. Sophia's reply came within hours, dripping with enthusiasm, her words practically glowing with the scent of opportunity. We arranged to meet at Brew and Bliss, a chic cafe near her loft, its exposed brick and artisanal pastries, the perfect backdrop for her curated aesthetic. I prepared meticulously, transforming myself into Clare Morgan. A sleek brunette wig, subtle makeup to age me down a decade, and a $600 athleisure outfit, athleta leggings, a cashmere sweater, and minimalist sneakers completed the disguise. I practiced a faint Boston accent, softening my vowels to match Claire's fictional backstory, and rehearsed her mannerisms until they felt like my own. By the time I stepped into the cafe, I was no longer Elizabeth Harper, scorned ex-wife. I was Clare, A vulnerable, wealthy Mark ready to invest in Sophia's dream. Sophia arrived 15 minutes late, her blonde hair cascading in perfect waves, her smile a calculated blend of warmth and appraisal, like a jeweler assessing a diamond's worth. She launched into a polished pitch about the transformative power of personalized Pilates, her voice smooth as honey, promising not just physical fitness, but a complete reinvention of self. Confidence, vitality, purpose. Her prices were absurd, quadruple the market rate, demanded upfront in cash or wire transfer. I work with a very select clientele, she said, leaning forward, her eyes scanning me for signs of wealth. Women like you, Claire, who understand that investing in yourself is the ultimate luxury. I nodded, playing the role of an eager client, asking questions about her methods, her success stories. But what struck me most was her indiscretion, a fatal flaw she didn't even recognize. Over cappuccinos, she spilled secrets about her clients, divorce dramas, insecurities, private struggles, laughing as she mocked their vulnerabilities. One client's obsessed with her husband's affair, she said, smirking. She cries through half our sessions. I keep telling her to fix herself, lose 20 pounds, update her wardrobe, but some women just don't get it. Her cruelty was breathtaking, not just in its casualness, but in its relish. Sophia saw the world as a hierarchy, a competition where she sat at the top, judging others for their perceived failures. I smiled, sipped my coffee, and let her talk. Every word recorded by the discreet device hidden in my smartwatch, its tiny microphone capturing her indiscretions with crystalline clarity. Claire booked weekly sessions, paying in advance with a credit card tied to a shell account I'd set up for this purpose. Over the next month, I met Sophia twice a week, each session a masterclass in her self-destruction. She revealed her life in fragments, unaware she was handing me the keys to her downfall. She gushed about her perfect marriage to James, describing him as brilliant, successful, the kind of man younger guys can't match. She shared her dreams of a wellness empire, corporate contracts, online courses, a book deal that would make her the next Deepak Chopra. She complained about financial limits, hinting at debts she kept hidden from James, and expressed frustration that Lily wasn't fully on board with her yet. Most damningly, she spoke of me, Elizabeth Harper, with thinly veiled contempt. James's ex is so bitter, she said during one session, stretching on a Pilates reformer as I mirrored her movements. She's stuck in the 90s, clinging to her sad little life. I keep telling Lily she deserves better than being her mom's emotional crutch. I smiled, nodded, and let her dig her own grave. Every session, I drew her out further, asking about her business plans, her finances, her goals. She was eager to impress Claire, the wealthy divorcee, and handed over client lists, revenue projections, and plans to expand illegally into California without proper licensing. She didn't know her every word was being recorded, every document saved, every boast a nail in her coffin. She was charging me $250 an hour for the privilege of dismantling her life. If you're marveling at the precision of my strategy, the way I turned Sophia's own arrogance against her, hit that like button and share this story with someone who loves a tale where the hunter becomes the hunted. We're about to watch Sophia's perfect world fracture, piece by meticulously planned piece. Stay with us, because the storm is breaking. Phase 3 was surgical, a chess move designed to give Sophia exactly what she wanted, a chance at glory, while ensuring it would destroy her. I needed to approach her as Elizabeth Harper, the gracious ex-wife, without arousing suspicion. I called James, catching him between meetings at his law firm, his voice carrying the weary professionalism that had always defined him. Our post-divorce rapport was polite but distant, centered on Lily and practical matters like shared investments. James, I said, my tone measured, I've been thinking about Lily's birthday dinner last month. You were right. I should make an effort to accept Sophia as part of the family. Lily adores her, and I want to support that. I heard Sophia's looking to expand her wellness business. I have contacts in corporate consulting who might be interested. James was stunned, his silence heavy with surprise, before shifting to cautious relief. That's generous, Elizabeth, he said. Sophia will be thrilled. She's been talking about taking her business to the next level. I'd like to reach out to her directly, I continued. Maybe discuss some opportunities. Would that be okay? Of course, he said, his voice warming with gratitude. This means a lot. I'll let her know to expect your call. I waited 2 days, giving James time to prime Sophia, to frame me as the supportive ex-wife, rather than a threat. Then I called her, using my real name, my real voice, my tone dripping with sincerity. Sophia, it's Elizabeth Harper, I said. James mentioned you're looking to expand your wellness business. I'd love to help. Lily speaks so highly of you, and that makes you family. Sophia's response was a masterclass in feigned warmth. Oh, Elizabeth, that's so kind of you, she said, her voice bright with surprised pleasure. I have to admit, I wasn't sure you approved of me. You make James happy, I said, the lie sliding off my tongue like silk. And Lily adores you. That's what matters. I believe in supporting family. We arranged to meet at Brew and Bliss, the same cafe where I'd posed as Clare, a delicious irony that made my pulse quicken. Sophia suggested it, unaware I'd already walked its polished floors as her unwitting mark. I arrived early, choosing a corner table where the hum of the cafe would mask our conversation. When Sophia arrived, on time now, sensing opportunity, she was practically glowing with ambition. Her blonde hair swept into a perfect bun, her smile a weapon honed by years of practice. I can't believe you're doing this, she said, settling into her chair, her eyes wide with excitement. I know things have been awkward between us, and I really appreciate you reaching out. I smiled warmly, the picture of graciousness. The past is the past, Sophia. What matters now is building a positive future for all of us, especially for Lily. I let her talk first, encouraging her to share her vision for Bennett Body Works. She painted an ambitious picture: corporate wellness programs for tech giants, executive coaching retreats in Napa Valley, online courses that would make her a household name. I know I have something special to offer, she said, her eyes bright with hunger. I just need the right platform to show the world what I can do. I think I can help with that, I said, leaning forward, my voice calm, but laced with promise. I have a contact at a logistics firm that's looking to implement a comprehensive wellness program for their executive team. They're willing to pay 60% above market rates for the right consultant, and they value innovation over traditional credentials. Sophia's eyes widened, her breath catching. That sounds perfect. What kind of company? Import, export, I said, keeping my tone casual. They work with manufacturers overseas, dealing with high-stress environments, long hours, frequent travel. They need someone who can help their executives manage stress, maintain focus, optimize performance. This was true. Technically, I'd found the company through my old legal network, a firm called Global Trade Solutions, with offices in San Francisco and Shanghai. I'd had preliminary conversations with their HR director, who was indeed interested in wellness programs. What I didn't mention was the company's murky reputation, whispers of labor violations, regulatory probes, and ethically questionable practices that made it a legal minefield. A competent professional would have run a background check before signing anything. Sophia, I suspected, wouldn't. The owner is an old law school colleague, I continued, handing her a sleek business card and a folder of professionally printed materials I'd prepared. He's looking for someone flexible, discreet, and able to navigate the unique challenges of international business. He's offering premium compensation, potentially even equity participation, if the partnership works out long term. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she took the materials, her eyes scanning the glossy pages with barely concealed greed. The business card was real, the company legitimate. But the materials contained subtle inaccuracies, misstated revenue figures, vague references to global partnerships that any savvy business person would have questioned. Sophia didn't. She was already mentally spending the money, envisioning herself as a corporate wellness guru, a star ascending. "This is incredible, Elizabeth," she said, her voice breathless. "I don't know how to thank you." "Just be the best version of yourself," I said, my smile warm, my eyes locked on hers. That's all any of us can do. Over the next week, Sophia reached out to my contact at Global Trade Solutions, her enthusiasm as blinding as a spotlight. The initial conversations went well. She was charming, polished, exactly the kind of dynamic presence the company wanted for their stressed-out executives. They drafted contracts for a 6-month wellness consulting program, with Sophia leading workshops on mindfulness and stress management. But as the negotiations progressed, the cracks in the deal began to show. The company's business model involved working with overseas manufacturers who skirted U.S. labor and environmental standards. The wellness program included coaching executives on managing the stress of difficult decisions, a euphemism for navigating ethical gray areas in the name of profit. Most problematically, the contract required Sophia to sign confidentiality agreements that could implicate her in the company's regulatory violations if any issues came to light. A cautious professional would have balked, demanded revisions, or walked away. Sophia, blinded by the promise of a $120,000 contract and the prestige of corporate work, signed without hesitation. She was so eager to prove herself, so desperate to scale her business, that she ignored the red flags waving in her face. She posted about her game-changing partnership on Instagram, posing in a tailored blazer with a caption about elevating wellness to the corporate level. She bought new business attire with money she didn't have, updated her LinkedIn to call herself a corporate wellness strategist, and began pitching herself to other firms as a rising star. I watched from the shadows, documenting every move, every email she sent to Global Trade Solutions, every contract she signed, every social media post celebrating her new role. I saved them all, building a comprehensive file of her recklessness. Sophia thought she was building an empire. She was actually constructing the scaffolding of her own downfall. If you're feeling the thrill of watching Sophia walk blindly into her own ruin, hit that like button and share this story with someone who loves a tale of cunning and consequence. The storm is about to break, and Sophia's perfect world is crumbling. Stay with us. My first strike was subtle, precise, like a needle piercing a vein. The Nevada tax lien, $10,000, now $18,000 with penalties, was a loose thread Sophia had forgotten, a relic of her past she assumed would never unravel. People like her, who live only for the present, often leave trails of unfinished business, and I was ready to pull this thread until her life unraveled. I contacted a business associate, Mark Ellison, a tax resolution specialist I'd worked with during my legal career. Posing as a consultant vetting a potential hire, I described Sophia's situation without naming her. I'm considering a wellness coach for a corporate project, I said over lunch at a quiet bistro. But I've heard there's an active tax lien in her name. What are the implications? Mark leaned back, his eyes narrowing. An active lien is a red flag. Companies, especially those in sensitive industries, won't touch someone with unresolved tax issues. It signals financial irresponsibility, potential legal trouble. They'd need to clear it before any contract could proceed. This was the opening I needed. I created a detailed report on Sophia's background, ostensibly for Global Trade Solutions Compliance Department. The report included her professional qualifications, flimsy, her business registrations, non-existent in California, her financial history, a disaster, and the active Nevada tax lien. I sent it anonymously, using an untraceable email account, framing it as a routine due diligence check from a concerned vendor. The response was immediate, exactly as I'd predicted. Within 24 hours, Global Trade Solutions' legal team contacted Sophia, informing her that her contract was suspended pending resolution of her outstanding tax obligations and regulatory compliance issues. Sophia was blindsided, her perfect opportunity slipping through her fingers like sand. That evening, my phone rang. Sophia's name flashed on the screen, and I let it ring twice before answering, my voice calm, concerned. "Elizabeth, something's gone wrong," she said, her tone tight with panic. "The company says there's a problem with my tax records, but I've never had tax issues. It's a mistake. Someone must have reported something false." I made sympathetic noises, letting her spill her fear and confusion. "That sounds so frustrating, Sophia," I said. "Have you checked your records? Maybe there's something you overlooked?" "I'm calling my accountant tomorrow," she said, her voice trembling. "This contract was going to change everything for my business. I can't lose it, Elizabeth." "I'm sure it'll work out," I said, my tone soothing. These things usually do. But I knew it wouldn't. The tax lien was real, valid, and resolving it would require Sophia to pay $18,000 she didn't have, plus legal fees to navigate the process. She spent the next week scrambling, hiring a tax attorney, setting up a payment plan, even considering a loan to settle the debt. But Global Trade Solutions wasn't patient. 10 days later, they terminated her contract, citing unresolvable compliance risks that made the partnership too dangerous to continue. Sophia called me again, her voice now laced with suspicion. "I can't shake the feeling someone wanted this to happen," she said. "The timing's too perfect. Someone dug up that tax lien to sabotage me." "Who would do something like that?" I asked, my tone innocent, my heart racing with the thrill of her paranoia. "I don't know," she snapped, "but I'm going to find out. This feels personal, Elizabeth." I expressed sympathy, outrage even, suggesting it might be a competitor or a disgruntled client. But inside, I smiled. Her paranoia was exactly what I wanted, a crack in her psyche that would make her reactive, impulsive, prone to mistakes. She was seeing shadows where none existed, and I was the shadow she'd never suspect. But I wasn't done. While Sophia grappled with her tax crisis, I moved to the next phase, targeting her professional credibility. The recordings I'd made as Clare Morgan were a treasure trove of indiscretions. Sophia mocking her clients, breaching confidentiality, discussing her business practices in ways that violated ethical and legal standards. I transcribed the most damaging segments, highlighting her scornful comments about clients' personal struggles and her admission to operating her LLC without proper licensing. I sent anonymous tips to the National Pilates Certification Program, attaching the transcripts and audio files. I also forwarded copies to the Better Business Bureau and major online review platforms where Bennett Body Works was listed. The Pilates board launched an immediate investigation, requesting client testimonials and documentation of her business practices. The BBB opened a case file, inviting complaints about her services. Review platforms flagged her business for potential ethical violations, triggering a flood of one-star reviews from former clients. Within 2 weeks, Sophia was drowning in professional scrutiny. She received formal notices from multiple organizations, each demanding responses to allegations of unprofessional conduct. None were criminal, but they required time, attention, and legal representation she couldn't afford. Her social media, once a shrine to her perfect life, grew erratic, fewer yoga poses, more vague rants about negative people, and jealous haters trying to tear me down. Her curated image was cracking, and the world was starting to see the truth beneath. But the final blow, the one that would shatter her life completely, targeted her marriage to James. James valued truth above all else, a principle he'd inherited from his father, a judge who'd drilled honesty into him like a commandment. He could forgive mistakes, even moral failings, but deception was his breaking point. Sophia had been lying to him from the moment they met, small lies about her background, her professional success, her financial stability, and larger lies that cut deeper. My investigation, aided by Rachel's expertise, uncovered Sophia's darkest secret. She'd been systematically defrauding James. She'd opened 3 credit cards in his name without his knowledge, racking up $30,000 in charges for her wardrobe, travel, and business expenses. She'd forged his signature on a $25,000 loan, using his vacation home as collateral. She'd even sold his vintage Rolex collection, a gift from his late father, to pay off a chunk of her credit card debt. This wasn't just deception. It was embezzlement, fraud, a betrayal so profound it would destroy any chance of James ever trusting her again. I needed to present this evidence in a way that didn't implicate me. James had to discover Sophia's lies through channels that seemed natural, credible, not the work of a vengeful ex-wife. The solution came from Sophia's own desperation. As her financial situation deteriorated, tax liens, legal fees, a crumbling business, she grew reckless, making larger withdrawals from joint accounts, taking cash advances on the secret credit cards, selling more of James's possessions to cover her mounting debts. James began to notice irregularities. Missing money, unfamiliar credit card statements. But Sophia had explanations for everything. The withdrawals were temporary business expenses to be reimbursed soon. The sold items were outdated, replaced with better versions. The new credit cards were strategic borrowing to boost our credit score. James wanted to believe her, so he did. But I could tell from Lily's casual comments that he was growing uneasy, sensing something amiss without pinpointing why. That's when I decided to give him a nudge. I compiled a detailed financial analysis, a dossier of Sophia's deception, bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals, credit card records in James's name, emails where Sophia discussed her debts with a friend, and recordings from my Clare Morgan sessions where she bragged about managing James's finances. I sent it to James anonymously, using an untraceable email account, framing it as from a concerned colleague who'd stumbled across the information during a business dealing with Sophia. The email was carefully worded, professional, credible. I thought you should know about potential financial irregularities involving your wife. I've attached documentation for your review. I wish to remain anonymous, but felt compelled to share this out of respect for your reputation. James received the email on a Friday afternoon. By Saturday morning, he was in his home office, combing through financial records with the methodical thoroughness that had made him a formidable attorney. What he found was worse than my dossier suggested. Sophia's deception was a sprawling web, costing him over $55,000 in unauthorized debts and stolen assets. She'd been running a long-term embezzlement scheme, using his trust and love as cover for her fraud. The confrontation happened that evening, and it was explosive. Lily, visiting for dinner, called me the next morning, her voice trembling with distress. "Mom, something awful happened at Dad's last night," she said. "He and Sophia had a huge fight about money. She's been stealing from him. Credit cards, loans, even his watches. He showed me documents, Mom. She's been lying about everything." "What did they say?" I asked, keeping my tone concerned, not curious. "Dad was furious," Lily said. "I've never seen him like that. Sophia was crying, saying he didn't understand, that she was protecting him from her financial problems. But he didn't believe her. He kept saying she made him a fool." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," I said gently. "People wear masks, and sometimes we don't see the truth until it's too late." Lily's voice broke. "Mom, she isn't perfect, is she? I thought she was so great, so put together, but she's been lying to all of us. I feel so stupid for believing her." "You're not stupid," I said, my heart aching for her pain. "You saw the good she showed you, and that speaks to your kind heart. But people can have good qualities and still make terrible choices." Over the next few days, the full scope of Sophia's deception unraveled. James hired a forensic accountant who confirmed the extent of her fraud. $60,000 in total, including unauthorized credit cards, forged loans, and stolen assets. More devastating was the realization that their entire marriage had been built on lies. Sophia had played him from the start, her love a performance designed to secure his wealth and status. James filed for divorce immediately, hiring the best family law attorney in San Francisco. He also pressed criminal charges for fraud and theft, ensuring Sophia would face consequences beyond the dissolution of their marriage. Sophia tried to explain, to apologize, to spin her lies into a narrative of love and desperation. "I was trying to protect you," she told James, tears streaming down her face. "I was going to fix everything before you found out." But James was a lawyer, trained to spot weak defenses. Her excuses crumbled under scrutiny, and her attempts to shift blame only deepened his fury. The marriage was over, though the legal process would take weeks to finalize. Sophia's perfect life was collapsing exactly as I'd planned. The beauty of my strategy was its elegance. I hadn't broken any laws, hadn't stooped to Sophia's level of deceit. I'd simply shone a light on her own choices, her lies, her fraud, her cruelty, and let the consequences unfold naturally. Sophia had built her life on a foundation of deception, and I'd merely removed the supports holding it together. The divorce proceedings were brutal. James, humiliated by Sophia's betrayal, pursued the case with ruthless efficiency. The forensic accountant's report detailed her theft: $60,000 in unauthorized charges, forged loans, and sold assets. The judge, unimpressed by Sophia's tearful pleas, granted James a clean divorce. No alimony, no property settlement, just a restitution order for the full amount she'd stolen. But the legal fallout was only the beginning. The criminal charges for fraud and theft led to a swift trial. The prosecution presented a damning case: bank records, forged signatures, recordings of Sophia's own words admitting to creative accounting to fund her lifestyle. The local newspaper covered the trial, branding her a con artist who used wellness coaching to prey on wealthy victims. Sophia was convicted, sentenced to 22 months in a minimum security prison, followed by 3 years of probation and community service. Her professional life imploded in parallel. The National Pilates Certification Program revoked her credentials, citing conduct unbecoming a professional and ethical violations. The Better Business Bureau issued a formal warning about Bennett Body Works, destroying its credibility. Her clients, wealthy women who'd trusted her with their vulnerabilities, canceled contracts, demanded refunds, and spread word through their social networks that Sophia was a fraud. Within a month, Bennett Body Works had 0 clients and a reputation so toxic no one would touch it. Sophia's financial situation went from precarious to catastrophic. Legal fees drained her remaining savings. Restitution orders forced her to liquidate her assets. The Audi was repossessed. Her designer wardrobe sold at consignment shops for pennies on the dollar. Her loft's landlord evicted her when she missed another rent payment, leaving her with nowhere to go. The social fallout was perhaps the cruelest blow. The affluent circle she'd worked so hard to infiltrate turned on her with vicious efficiency. Women who'd once fawned over her Pilates classes now whispered about her at brunches and galas, calling her that gold digger who fooled James. They'd never truly accepted her, they said, always sensing she was not quite our kind. Sophia's Instagram, once a shrine to her perfect life, went silent. Her last post, a cryptic quote about rising above negativity that drew mocking comments from former followers. With no options left, Sophia returned to her parents' trailer in Nevada, the same dusty town she'd fled a decade ago in search of glamour. The prom queen who'd dreamed of greatness was now sleeping in her childhood bedroom, unemployed, unemployable, and facing the stigma of a criminal record. She took a job cleaning houses for the same kind of wealthy women she'd once mocked, scrubbing their marble countertops and polishing their silver while they looked down on her with pitying smiles. The irony was exquisite, a poetic justice so perfect it felt scripted by fate. Sophia, who'd called me irrelevant, who'd mocked my dated style and sad little life, was now living the kind of humble existence she'd once despised. Her fall wasn't just financial or social, it was existential. She'd lost her sense of self, her confidence in her ability to charm her way out of trouble, her belief that she was untouchable. Meanwhile, James was grappling with the wreckage of his trust. The man who prided himself on reading people, on seeing through facades, had been thoroughly deceived by a small-town con artist with fake credentials and a talent for manipulation. The scandal spread through their social and professional circles like wildfire, turning James into an object of pity and gossip. "I can't believe how blind I was," he told Lily during a tearful conversation. "Everyone must think I'm a fool." Lily, struggling with her own sense of betrayal, tried to comfort him. "You trusted someone you loved, Dad. That doesn't make you a fool." But James's confidence was shattered, his once unshakable belief in his judgment replaced by doubt and self-recrimination. For Lily, the lesson was even more painful. She'd worshipped Sophia, called her perfect, defended her to me and to the world. Now she felt foolish, manipulated, her trust in her own instincts shaken. "I can't believe I fell for her act," she told me over dinner a month later, her voice bitter with self-reproach. "She made me feel special, like she cared about me, but it was all fake. She was using me to get to Dad, to make you look bad by comparison. You're not responsible for her choices," I said gently, reaching for her hand. "You saw the kindness she showed you, and that speaks to your heart, not her deceit." "But I hurt you, Mom," she said, tears welling. "I said such awful things, compared you to her, made you feel like you weren't enough, and all along she was the one who wasn't enough." "You learned a hard lesson," I said, my voice soft but firm. "The difference between appearance and reality. between performance and authenticity. That's a gift, Lily, even if it hurts now. Our bond grew stronger through the ordeal, forged in the fire of truth. Lily began to see my quiet strength, my unpretentious life, as choices, not limitations. She valued the stability I offered, the authenticity she'd taken for granted before Sophia's lies exposed its rarity. As for me, I watched Sophia's downfall from a distance, the satisfaction of a general who'd won a war without firing a shot. Every consequence she faced was the result of her own choices, her lies, her fraud, her cruelty. I'd simply ensured those choices came to light, that the truth she'd buried could no longer be hidden. 6 months after Sophia's conviction, my phone rang on a quiet Tuesday evening. I was in my study, surrounded by books and the faint scent of lavender from the garden outside, when Sophia's name flashed on the caller ID. I felt a jolt of surprise, followed by a deep sense of completion, like the final note of a symphony. "Elizabeth," she said when I answered, her voice a shadow of its former confidence, small and uncertain. "I know I have no right to call. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm desperate, and I don't know who else to turn to." I let her words hang in the air, giving her space to fill with her desperation. "What do you need, Sophia?" I asked, my tone neutral, betraying nothing. "I'm living with my parents in Nevada," she said, her voice trembling. "They're going to kick me out if I don't find steady work soon. I can't get hired anywhere because of my record, and the only jobs here, they're not enough to live on. I was wondering if you might know of any opportunities, someone who'd give me a chance despite my past. I'd do anything honest, Elizabeth. Anything." The irony was almost too perfect to bear. Sophia, who'd dismissed me as irrelevant, who'd mocked my life while stealing from my family, was now begging me for salvation. I considered her request, letting the silence stretch, my mind weighing the moment with the same precision I'd applied to her destruction. "Sophia," I said finally, my voice calm but unyielding, "you made choices that hurt a lot of people. My daughter, my ex-husband, your clients, and ultimately yourself. Those choices have consequences, and they can't be undone by apologies or pleas for help." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've lost everything, Elizabeth. Everything. I just need a chance to start over." "You have a chance," I said. "Every day for the rest of your life is a chance to make better choices. But those choices have to come from you, not from others rescuing you from the consequences of your actions." There was a long silence, the weight of her defeat palpable, even through the phone. "I understand," she said finally. "I'm sorry for calling. I'm sorry for everything." She hung up before I could respond, though I had nothing more to say. Sophia had learned the hardest lesson of all, that actions have consequences, that trust once broken is nearly impossible to rebuild, and that the people you dismiss as irrelevant might be the ones who determine your fate. A year later, in February 2025, James called me, his voice heavy with exhaustion and something deeper, desperation, perhaps, or regret. It was early morning, the kind of cold gray dawn that makes the world feel fragile. I was in my kitchen, brewing coffee and reading the paper, when his name appeared on my phone. "Elizabeth," he said, his tone raw. "I need your help. It's about Sophia." "What's wrong, James?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral, though my heart quickened with anticipation. "She's in prison," he said, "convicted of fraud and theft. I had to testify against her. It's been a nightmare. But that's not why I'm calling. There's more." He paused, and I could hear the weight of what came next. The police investigated her background. She's been running scams like this for years, targeting men like me, divorced, vulnerable, with money to burn. They've found at least 5 other victims, Elizabeth. Hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen over a decade. This was news to me, though not entirely surprising. Predators like Sophia rarely limit themselves to one target. "I'm sorry you went through that," I said, and I meant it. Not for Sophia's fate, but for the pain it caused James and Lily. "That's not the worst part," he continued, his voice quieter now. "The worst is what this has done to Lily. She blames herself for pushing me to marry Sophia, for praising her to everyone, for comparing you to her. She's carrying so much guilt, and I don't know how to help her." My heart ached for Lily, the one unintended casualty of my plan. "She's stronger than you think," I said. "This will make her more discerning, more careful about who she trusts. Sometimes the most painful lessons are the most valuable." "Maybe," James said, unconvinced. "But there's something else I need to tell you, and I don't know how you'll take it." I waited, sensing what was coming. "I've been thinking about our marriage, our divorce," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. I made you feel like you weren't enough, like you needed to change to keep me happy. But you were exactly what I needed, and I was too selfish to see it. Sophia showed me what it's like to be with someone who lies, who takes without giving anything real. The contrast. It made me realize what I threw away when I left you. I dreamed of this moment for years. Imagine the satisfaction of James admitting his mistakes, acknowledging the pain he'd caused. But now, hearing the defeat in his voice, I felt less triumph than I'd expected, and more a quiet sadness for the time and love we'd lost. "I appreciate you saying that, James," I said carefully. "But we can't change the past. We can only learn from it and make better choices moving forward." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or a second chance. I just needed you to know I'm sorry for the pain I caused you." He paused, then added, "There's one favor I need, though I have no right to ask. Lily needs you now. She needs to see that it's possible to be a strong, independent woman without being cruel or manipulative. She's become so cynical, so suspicious of everyone's motives. Lily and I have been spending more time together," I said. "Our relationship has grown stronger through this. I'll help her see that trust is still possible, that not everyone who seems charming is hiding something." "Thank you," James said, his voice heavy with gratitude. "I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen, the morning light filtering through the window, and thought about the journey that had brought us here. My revenge against Sophia had been more complete than I could have imagined. She'd lost everything: her freedom, her reputation, her financial security, her social status, her sense of self. James had been forced to confront his own poor judgment, his blind spots exposed to the world. Lily had learned a brutal lesson about the difference between appearance and reality, but it had made her wiser, stronger, more appreciative of authenticity. And I had proven something to myself, something I hadn't fully realized until now. I was capable of extraordinary patience, of strategic thinking so precise it could topple empires, of a strength that didn't need to shout to be heard. I'd protected my family from a predator who would have continued to poison them, and I'd done it without leaving a single fingerprint. 2 years later, in the spring of 2025, I sat in my garden, the air heavy with the scent of blooming jasmine. The Craftsman House, once a battleground of memories, was now a sanctuary, its walls filled with new moments of joy. Lily was visiting for the weekend, as she did every few weeks. our bond stronger than ever. She was engaged to Ethan now, the steady, honest man she'd gushed about during that fateful dinner 2 years ago. He was a software engineer, grounded, kind, with no interest in flash or deception. Their wedding was planned for the following summer, a small ceremony in Napa Valley, and I could see in Lily's eyes a new kind of wisdom, a clarity about what mattered: love, trust, authenticity. We sat on the garden bench, a wedding magazine open in her lap, the pages filled with dresses and floral arrangements. "Mom," she said, looking up, "I've been thinking about Sophia, about how I fell for her act so completely." "What about her?" I asked, setting down my book, a biography of Ruth Bader Ginsburg that felt oddly fitting. "I keep wondering if there were signs I missed," she said, her voice thoughtful. "Things that would have told me she wasn't who she pretended to be." I considered her question carefully, choosing my words with the precision I'd honed over years of legal practice. "There were signs," I admitted, "but they were subtle, the kind that require experience to recognize. The way she spoke about others when she thought no one important was listening. The way her stories never quite added up if you paid attention to the details. The way her kindness always had an agenda, a way of making you feel small while she seemed to lift you up." Lily nodded, her eyes distant. "I remember now. She'd make these comments about you, supportive on the surface, but they always left me feeling like you were less. I thought she was being diplomatic, but she was trying to turn me against you." "Exactly," I said. "Sophia was a master at manipulation, at making cruelty look like kindness. But you learn to see through it, and that's what matters." "Do you think she ever cared about Dad?" Lily asked, her voice soft. "Or was it all just an act?" I thought for a moment, weighing the question. I think Sophia was capable of caring, but only in terms of what people could give her. She cared about your father's money, his status, the life he could provide. But as a person, I don't think she ever saw him, or anyone, beyond what they could do for her. "That's so sad," Lily said, her eyes glistening. "Not just for Dad, but for her. What kind of life is that? Never really connecting with anyone." "A lonely one," I agreed, "and ultimately, a self-destructive one." We sat in comfortable silence, the afternoon sun filtering through the oak tree that had stood in this garden for decades, a silent witness to my marriage, Lily's childhood, and the storms that had reshaped our family. "Mom," Lily said eventually, her tone hesitant, "can I ask you something uncomfortable?" "Of course," I said, bracing myself. "Did you have anything to do with what happened to Sophia?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "I know she brought it on herself with her lies and fraud, but sometimes I wonder if you helped things along." I'd been expecting this question for months, had rehearsed my answer in the quiet hours of the night. "Sophia destroyed herself," I said, my voice steady. "All I did was make sure the truth came to light." Lily studied my face, her expression a mix of curiosity and understanding. "I'm glad it did," she said finally. "She was hurting all of us, and we didn't even realize it. Sometimes people need protection from those who don't have their best interests at heart," I said. "That's what families do." Lily smiled, reaching for my hand. "You've always protected me, haven't you? Even when I didn't know I needed it." "That's what mothers do," I said, squeezing her hand, my heart swelling with love and pride. The conversation shifted to lighter topics: wedding plans, Ethan's latest project, mutual friends we'd see at the ceremony. But I could tell Lily had found the answer she needed, even if I hadn't spelled it out. She understood I'd played a role in Sophia's downfall, and she was grateful, not judgmental. She'd learned that justice sometimes requires action, not just hope. Later that afternoon, James called to discuss wedding logistics, his voice still carrying traces of the humility Sophia's betrayal had forced upon him. He was dating someone new now, a literature professor named Margaret, a woman his age with no interest in his wealth or status. He was cautious, taking things slowly, his trust scarred but healing. The experience with Sophia had changed him, made him more humble, more appreciative of genuine connection, more aware of his own blind spots. "Dad asked me to tell you something," Lily said after the call, her expression curious. "He said he's grateful for how you handled everything with Sophia. He said you could have made things worse for him, but you chose to protect the family instead of seeking revenge." I nearly laughed at the irony. If only James knew how meticulously I'd orchestrated Sophia's destruction, how every move had been calculated to expose her lies while keeping my hands clean. But his ignorance was a testament to my strategy's brilliance. I'd achieved total victory while maintaining plausible deniability, a silent triumph no one could trace back to me. "Your father's a good man who made some bad choices," I said. "I hope he's learned from this and makes better ones in the future." "He has," Lily said confidently. "This whole thing taught him the difference between love and infatuation. He won't make the same mistake again." As evening fell, Lily hugged me tightly before driving back to her apartment in the city. "I'm so lucky to have you as my mom," she said, her voice warm with gratitude. "You're the strongest person I know, and you've taught me what it means to be a woman of substance." After she left, I lingered in the garden, the stars emerging like diamonds against the velvet sky. The house was quiet, the neighborhood still, and I felt a deep, unshakable satisfaction, the kind that comes from a job perfectly executed. Sophia Bennett had entered my life as a threat, a predator who sought to erase my importance and steal my place in the hearts of those I loved most. She'd dismissed me as irrelevant, worked to undermine my bond with Lily, treated me with casual cruelty because she believed there'd be no consequences. She'd been wrong about everything. I hadn't just survived her campaign, I'd turned it into the instrument of her destruction. Every lie she told, every manipulation she attempted, every cruel word she spoke had been a brick in the wall of her own ruin. The woman who'd called me imperfect was now living with the permanent consequences of her own flaws. Sophia had lost more than her money, her freedom, or her reputation. She'd lost her sense of self, her confidence in her ability to charm her way out of trouble, her belief that she was untouchable. She'd spend the rest of her life knowing she'd been outplayed by someone she'd dismissed as unworthy, a knowledge that would torment her more than prison bars or financial ruin ever could. As I sat under the stars, I thought about the word that had started this saga: perfect. Lily had called Sophia perfect, not understanding that perfection was often just another word for untested. Sophia had seemed flawless because her lies had never been challenged, her schemes never exposed, her cruelty never answered. I'd provided the test, and she'd failed spectacularly. But in the process, I discovered something about myself, a truth I hadn't fully grasped until now. I was capable of extraordinary patience, of strategic thinking so precise it could topple empires, of a strength that didn't need to shout to be heard. I was capable of perfection, not the shallow, curated kind Sophia had chased, but the real perfection of being exactly who I needed to be when my family was threatened. Sophia had thought she was perfect until she wasn't. I'd proven I was perfect in all the ways that mattered, as a mother, a protector, a woman who refused to be diminished. My victory was quiet, complete, and deeply satisfying, a testament to the power of patience, intelligence, and love. And so, dear listener, as we close this chapter, know this. True perfection isn't about appearances or applause. It's about standing tall for those you love, wielding your strength with grace, and letting the truth be your sword. If my journey has stirred something in you, hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Elizabeth's Stories for more tales of triumph over betrayal. Until next time, embrace your power, protect what matters, and never underestimate the quiet ones. The most devastating victories are often the ones no one sees coming.